Welcome to Outdoor Chatter. I'm your host, Jake McCall, and I'm going to connect with fascinating people from around the country, whether it's social media influencers, industry professionals, or some that lie somewhere in between. And we're going to talk all things outdoors. We'll talk tools and tractors, raising animals, and building a homestead. We're going to learn more about these people and what drives them and what fuels their love for the outdoors. So I'm excited for you to come along on this journey with me. So let's dive right in and get to know these awesome people that share our love for the outdoors. In today's podcast, we have Tony Lay from Tony's Tractor Adventure. He's a really good guy, and I'm lucky enough to be able to call him a friend. So I don't want to spoil anything we talk about, but we get into a couple different subjects that, he's never actually shared before. So there's some things coming up that are first time that it's ever been told on camera, and I'm excited to share this experience with you. So without further ado, let's jump into it and let's go talk with Tony. How did your call go that you were on?
It was pretty good. Yeah, we had a good time. We were reviewing a website, a new website, and just making some inputs for some changes. The
Sure.
website's never done. It's one thing. So I think it's pretty awesome that I get a little bit of input on that, and got that done, got that knocked out.
Websites are never done. I can tell you that
No.
with mine. It's constantly working on it.
Yeah, you're constantly working on it. Matter of fact, I need to get back on mine. I hadn't updated mine in a couple of months, and I got to put some new material on there. But mine's
now,
not.
what's the
Go ahead.
primary use of your website? Like, what do you use it for?
Right now, at some point we may sell something through there. So that was kind of more importantly, we didn't know what we were going to do. So I went ahead and got the name of Tony'sTractorAdventure.com before somebody else did. So
Sure.
that was really what was going on there. And, so I just want to make sure that, I got it in advance, and in the future, we may sell, some swag on there, or we may sell a product on there. I don't know, we kind of just a cautionary purchase.
Now, I guess we should lead into why you have a website in the first place and kind of who you are, and we'll start with that.
Well, I'm Tony, and I'm one of the creators of Tony's Tractor Adventure Homestead. My wife is she does all the camera work, but she's also does a lot of work in front of the camera as well. And we have a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, Instagram, Rumble. We got a little bit on all of it, and we're just kind of building our homestead and just bringing people along the journey. And we've also got some partners and sponsors on our YouTube channel, and so that's become a big part of what we do as well. We are ambassadors for TYM tractors, and then we're also like ambassadors for Bighorn side by sides, and that's another whole avenue that I didn't have any idea that was going to open up for us once we started our YouTube channel.
Now, how long ago did you start your YouTube channel?
I was looking back. I told somebody the other day that we started about 6 years ago, but it was more like it was more like 7 years ago. Time flies when when you're having fun. So definitely about 7 years ago, and I would say probably 6 years ago we got real serious with it. We seen the possibility for this being a career, and so that was, I'm not monetarily motivated so much, but I really enjoy creating content, and so it was just kind of it was a no-brainer. I enjoy doing it, and I can get paid to do it too. So, that's how it kind of got started.
What did you notice what was the thing that made you notice, like, hey, this actually could be something? Like, where was that shift?
Okay, let me tell you how the channel started. And
Perfect.
So I retired out of the military, and I bought a little Massey Ferguson GC 1705 tractor and a tiller. And I'm kind of I'm a little bit of a nerd. I always say I'm a little bit of a nerd. And I got on a tractor forum by net. I still remember it's still there. So I got on tractor forum by net, and I put a picture of my little tractor, which is probably still there, on Tractor by Net, and I said, this is my new tractor. This is my, this new tiller. Well, one of the guys that got on there, and he made a comment. He goes, "Hey, can you do a video on how to set the tiller up?" And I'm like, I don't know how to make a video. So I went to YouTube and watched a video on how to make a video. And literally that's how I had no idea how to upload a video. I didn't know the first step, nothing, had no idea. So I made that video and put it on the internet and put it on YouTube actually. And, kind of forgot about it. Come back like a month later and it's like, I don't know, 12,000 people had watched that video. And it was a horrible video. It was horrible. It was, worst video ever. But it provided information that a lot of people were interested in. So it didn't matter whether you were a Massey Ferguson or a John Deere. How to set a tiller up on the back of a tractor is kind of universal. And so it reached people and provided them with some information. And then it dawned on me. It's like, wait a minute. I really enjoyed that. And I just started that journey. And then I started watching. I have watched probably tens of thousands of hours of video on YouTube about how to make better video. And, it's not my natural state. It's something I've had to learn. I've had to absolutely learn to be in front of the camera. I'm an introvert naturally. So, now 6 years later, 7 years later, I have no problem at all being in front of a camera. It just doesn't bother me. Sometimes I can get to situations where I'm uncomfortable, but I can generally push through.
What was your response or what was your thought when you came back and looked at that video and 12,000 people saw it? I mean, for somebody that hasn't ever made any kind of content, that had to be quite a shock.
I think I said, "Holy smokes." Yeah, I think that was my exact words. Holy smokes. And then I think the next, at that point in time, that's when, you started seeing people making money, making income off of YouTube. And, I didn't even know what to call it. I put in, I went and searched on YouTube how to make money on YouTube. I didn't understand the word monetize. You monetize your channel. That was how far along ago it was. And, I think when I did it, you had to have 1,000 subscribers and that was it. There was no watch hour. So now you have to have like 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And once you have 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, then you can apply to be a partner. But it's when I seen that, and I had retired, I was out of the military. I didn't have a job. We literally retired, and we had been going on some vacations and stuff, and decided that just wasn't for me. I didn't want to sit around, waiting for my next cruise. I wanted to do something, so we ended up purchasing land and starting our own homestead, and it just all kind of happened at the same time. I will kind of say probably that we bought the land because I was looking for some sort of content. I was looking for some self-fulfillment. I wanted to do something I really enjoyed doing, but it would also provide content. And we actually didn't think at the time we bought the property that we were going to move there because we're only like 11 miles from the property. That's something that has happened. We've grown dramatically as far as people and possibilities since we started our channel.
You mean people as in like people watching and viewers?
No, I mean as people, as individuals, we've grown.
Okay.
Our world has broadened. In the Army, I was an officer in the Army, and I did have, as an officer, you do have more latitude. But you still are playing in a very you're playing in a very structured society, right? Everybody has their place, and everybody walks around with a rank on, so you know exactly where you're at in the pecking order, and so you have some, as an officer, you will make some decisions that that maybe the lower enlisteds won't make or have the opportunity to make. You'll have some more control. But it's still very structured. And then once we got, out, and there's nobody telling us to do this. We make our own rules. I have to tell myself, get up in the morning, go to the gym. I tell myself, get up in the morning, go make video, go make content, think about what people want to see. It's just something you are responsible for you entirely. And now I'm responsible for our YouTube business, and my wife is. We're both responsible for our business. And now we are, we have a sponsor channel. So now we have obligations to our sponsors, and we provide them a good product, or, we show their tractors, or we show their side-by-sides, or their implements, or whatever we're sponsored by, we show it working. And so that's what I mean by we've grown. There's nobody leading us by the nose saying do it this way. We have to figure it out ourselves.
I think any business owner can probably relate to that, because
Absolutely,
like you said, YouTube is a business.
Yeah.
So I look at myself and my business. There's no one that tells me I have to go to work. There's no one that tells me, hey, you can't go golfing today. You have to be accountable for your own actions, and you have to have that drive and determination to improve and do better. So I get where you're coming from there.
As an entrepreneur, every entrepreneur, you have to, if you see an entrepreneur, you see a self-starter.
So obligations to your sponsors, you said that. Now, what kind of obligations do they put on you when they're supplying you with whatever they are?
Let's just say, for an example, we do an attachment, say a tiller. Say, hey, we would like you to show our tiller on your channel. Well, we have a strict code, and that code is that we will tell the viewer that it's good or bad. They don't get to tell us what to say. And if they don't trust their product enough to put it in front of us and let us say what we say, then we don't need them as a sponsor anyway. So that's first and foremost. We're not going to sell our integrity. And that's why on our channel, we never tell anybody to buy anything. You don't see me going, hey, you can get this on sale. It's our 0%, interest for da 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 da. The only time you'll ever see a commercial is in our live streams. TWM sponsors our live stream, and we put a little 30-second commercial in the live, or maybe not even 30 seconds. It might be just like 15 seconds. And but I still, if we say, hey, I'm gonna make a full-length video talking about the features of this tiller and showing it work, and maybe I provide the manufacturer 10 pictures, photo quality pictures for their website, right? So we got to get that done. If I say I'm going to do it within 3 months, and I got to do it within 3 months. Sometimes I'll have sponsors that reach out to us. Hey, we're going to do a special on this item. Can you whip this out and get this done in 2 weeks? So, most times I'm going to say, no, I'm not your guy. Because we got plans, and we got videos planned out far in advance.
So how far out do you plan your videos?
I mean, I'm thinking about next spring already. Yeah. So we're thinking about what are we going to be doing next spring? What are our goals? What do we want to accomplish? It never works. It's just a plan. It never works,
right.
But you still want to do it. You still got a plan. You can't control the weather. We had this crazy stuff today. It was this liquid. It's clear liquid was falling from the sky. And we've not seen that in several months in any kind of measurable quantity. So I'm calling my sister up like, hey, what's this clear stuff falling out of the sky? It's the first time it's rained here in literally of any consequence in probably 5 weeks. It's been
wow. Now where are you?
In West Tennessee.
Tennessee.
We were in a place where there was we couldn't burn, couldn't burn anything. It was bad. It was pretty bad drought. It was perfect for the farmers. We had great farm weather. We had plenty of moisture. All the crops did great, and it was great for them to harvest because they were able to do all their harvest and not have to worry about rain. So yeah, it's been great for them, but it was really dry. My deer food plot's not doing so great.
The deer food plot's not doing very good?
No, not doing so great.
How big is your food plot?
Probably overall, probably an acre, right at an acre. At least
a pretty good sized plot.
Yeah, I just basically drove down and back, with tilling and threw seed out. I always make the joke. I said, that deer's only going to be $85 a pound.
Now, that's kind of that serves you in a couple of different purposes, because you have, one, you're building yourself a food plot, and two, you're getting to create the content of you building a food plot.
Sure, yeah. And I would do it anyway. I mean, it's a win-win, because I would do it anyway. At least I have the content of doing it. I wish YouTube was a little bit more friendly towards, hunting. But I don't show that on our channel just because this is a business for us, and we have sponsors, and we have, responsibilities, and I'm not going to jeopardize the channel. Even though I'm a big 2A guy, I'm not going to show me out hunting just because of that. You have to. I guess it's a compromise, but I can live with it.
Well, I guess that's all that matters. Is you can live with it. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned being an officer in the military. Do you think that prepared you or didn't prepare you in any sort of way for this whole YouTube thing, and maybe the accountability that comes along with it, or just the creation in general?
Yeah, I definitely impacted me. I started out enlisted. I want to go to college, and so I went in the Army, enlisted. While I was in the Army, I started doing night colleges. It only took me 32 years to get my degree. Laugh now. You need a laugh
Now,
button.
what is that degree in?
General studies. Yeah, we always
General
make
studies. Okay.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up. The reality is in the Army, as long as you have a degree, a bachelor's degree in something, you can, you can get you can become an officer. You got to pass. You got to be smart enough to pass the ASVAB with a high enough score, and then, so I passed the officer requirements for the ASVAB, and then I got my degree, and then I had to go through. I applied for officer training course, which was what I would call command officers, and then I got selected to go to warrant officer school. And warrant officers, you stay in the fields you're in. You specialize in a specific field. So I ended up accepting the warrant officer commission, and I declined going to OCS, and I went to WOCS, which is warrant officer school. So that opened up a lot of doors. Warrant officers are very highly respected in the military. I always make the joke that, nobody knows who you work for, and you can just look at a clipboard and nobody will talk to you. You can go for weeks without anybody talking to you. Because everybody's kind of afraid you're going to have them do something. I always make another joke that the warrant officers are kind of like the IRS agents of the Army. We went into all the inspections. So a lot of times they didn't like to see you coming. It's like, oh no, here, we're getting ready to get inspected. So.
How long were you in the military before you retired?
Almost 30 years. Yeah, almost 30 years. I would have, I had to have a knee replacement. And at the time that I started the knee replacement, the Army was going to let me stay in. I was going to have the knee replacement, go through rehab, and then I would have a MEB board, a medical evaluation board. So I was in the process. I already had the knee replacement done. I was already recovering, but the MEB board came up, and during that time frame is when there was a big drawdown in the military. I think President Obama announced that. I don't remember the exact dates, but it's like 2014 or somewhere in that time frame. So while I was doing the rehab, they changed the rules basically, and it didn't care if you were a private or an officer. Because the reality is, I was a warrant officer. I wasn't going to kick doors in. I was going to, set it behind a keyboard and push keyboard. I was a keyboard warrior. I did logistics and maintenance, and but I got lumped into the same thing. If you're private to whatever rank, if you had a knee replacement and your board was bad, you couldn't. If you had a knee replacement, you couldn't stay in. You were found not fit for military duty. So that's how that happened. I had all intentions of staying in, because as a warrant officer, you can stay for a long time. I mean, you literally can stay to you're 60 years old.
So you were going to stay in, but because of that, you were almost forced out.
No, I was forced out. I was forced out, and I went ahead and did what they call a medical retirement. If you take your normal retirement, it's not as much money. But if you take your medical retirement, so I went ahead, it was kind of crazy. I was going to get out anyway. So being forced out medically, I get the medical retirement, which is like being retired with more time in than you have. So
that's beneficial.
The paycheck's bigger. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, so that's definitely important for your life and your future.
We kind of had it figured out where we bought our house. We were, I didn't need to have another job afterwards. We were going to go on vacations and cruise. My wife's from Germany, so we're going to go stay with her family we have free hotels, right? So we can go stay over there, and they come over here as well, and they'll stay with us. So sometimes we'll go over and stay a month at a time, and but after a while, it just was not fun anymore. I thought I was going to play golf. We bought a house here on the golf course, and we've been here 8 years now, and I've never been on the golf course yet. And I know that's sacrilegious to you. I know as you're an avid golfer, but I literally live in the country club and could throw a golf ball to the golf course, and I've never played golf on it once.
So if I come to Tennessee, can I get you out on that golf course?
Well, I'm not even a member.
No,
not even a member. So no.
So it's a private club, no public play?
I know so little about it. I don't know.
I guess I'm gonna have to find out.
Yeah, we'd have to. I'm sure we could get you on the course. I got friends that are members, and I'm sure I could be a member if we needed to be. But it's just one of them deals where my priorities changed from the time what I thought retirement was going to be, and what retirement was two different things. It was not being non-productive is not productive for me. I have to be. Sense. I have to be productive. I have to accomplish something. So like we'll build these projects on our YouTube channel, and I don't care a thing. I don't care about things. Things don't mean anything to me. So we'll build, like I'll use this example. We built this big elaborate greenhouse for Tanya, and we get through with it, cross my arms and I look at it like, that is awesome. We did a great job. That is so cool. What are we going to do now? I don't care.
On to the next thing all the time.
I don't care about stuff. We get a new tractor. Look at this tractor. It's so cool. It's awesome. We look the tractor over. We get through with it. It's like, okay, all right, now what? What are we going to build? I want to build.
Yeah. What am I going to do with this tractor?
Yeah, what am I going to do with this tractor now? I like to do things. I don't want to just, like I said, things in general don't have any value to me at all. Come and go. I could lose everything that we own today and be perfectly okay with it because I know I can get some more things tomorrow. And
that's a good way to look at things, and it makes for a good jumping off point for building a YouTube channel, because if you're constantly wanting to be doing things, right, then that's perfect, because you're always doing things and you always have that fresh stream of content coming in.
Sure. Well, it's when you understand that you can't carry any of these things with you, and life is more about the journey than the getting there. So many people can't wait to get there. They get there and then they stop. They stop living. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue to journey until I can't put one foot in front of the other.
That's a cool way to look at it. You said that you were over there in West Tennessee. Have you always been from West Tennessee, or did you move there after the?
No, I was born in West Tennessee. We moved around a couple little towns and stuff, but reality is I was always in West Tennessee. Originally, they would have called me a river rat. That's what they called us. So we were down by the Mississippi River, and then when I was about 8 years old, we moved to the hill country, and started doing farming. My granddad had he raised pigs at a large scale. Like he had two buildings. I think each one of the buildings held like 2,500 head. So all the grandbabies, all the grandsons were, we were free labor, and we all cleaned the pig pens at some point in our life or in our times. And I remember going to basic training, and I thought, everybody was like, "This is so terrible." I'm like, "No, this is not that bad." This is
now pigs. I'm not super familiar with raising pigs, but I know that cross-contamination between pig barns and disease and sickness is a big issue. I know nowadays there's clean rooms where you have to go in and they cycle out the air and take off your clothing.
That wasn't it. Well, what they did, it was similar in this respect. You had different pens, and each pen was separated from the other pens of pigs, right? And then the pigs would go out in their little area, and you would wash the manure down into this big grate system in each pen, and it would go out to a lagoon. So each pen's pigs didn't touch the other pig's pen. So if there was disease, it was kept, just to that one pen. And then sometimes like a pig would get injured, and they would pull that pen. They would separate that pig from that herd of pigs and put it in a separate pen by itself, let it recover, and then maybe put it back later. Sometimes they wouldn't let them reintroduce another pig back in. Like if the pig was in there and you took them out and then put them back in, they wouldn't let them reintroduce because they just kill it. Pigs are weird.
Really?
Yeah, pigs are weird.
Pigs are strange. We had some on the farm growing up, but I think we only had like maybe 6 at a time. Like we
Well,
didn't raise pigs in any kind of scale. We just had a couple.
so we had
But
my granddad had the 2 buildings, 2,500 head, and then we had at our place we had what's called fairing houses, and we had female hogs that would birth pigs, and we would raise those pigs till they were big, the piglets, till they were big enough to be shipped over to my granddad's place, which was where they would feed them out, and then they'd carry them to a place called, let's see, Real Foot Meat Packing. It's all gone now, but that was a massive meat packing, kind of like what Tyson's would be nowadays. That's what that was. All the farmers would bring their livestock there to be made into sausage. Tennessee pride, baby.
Tennessee pride. I like it.
Actually, there was Real Foot sausage around here for years, and somebody bought the company and bought the name brand. I don't know if they still make Real Foot sausage or not.
How old were you when you decided that you wanted to go into the military?
You know, I watched Rambo, so probably when I was 13, 14 years old. Everything at that time, Top Gun, it really romanticized. It really romanticized the military career back then. I mean, if you think of any movie of the 1980s, the characters were larger than life, right? And they lived exciting lives, and so that kind of brought me to that point. The other thing that really, I guess, solidified the process, the decision making process, was that about the time that I graduated from high school, a year before I graduated high school, the bottom fell out of farming. I mean, it was horrible. At one point, we were going to be considered like middle class, upper middle class, right? And then the bottom fell out of farming, and we lost everything. My dad had a construction, my dad and my mom, they ran a construction equipment. Like we had 2 dozers, 2 big excavators, like, 30, one of them I think was 30 ton, one of them was like 40 tons. It was big piece
stuff.
of machinery. Yeah. And we had a D7 Cat and a Komatsu 65 dozer, the low boys, all that equipment, and we worked for the farmers, clearing, we called it new ground. You ever heard of new ground?
The phrase new ground, no, but I think I know where you're going at, but I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, my grandma used to tell me, she said, son, if you don't settle down, I'm going to tear your butt up like new ground. And that meant it was going to be you rip trees out of the ground. That gives you a good understanding of what she was meaning. But anyway, so the bottom fell out of farming, and the farmers just did not, they didn't have any sort of jobs. Or on my uncle's, I would have probably worked on my uncle's farm, or if it had stayed going, I would probably just been a heavy equipment operator, because I grew up on dozers and backhoes and excavators and road graders and anything that anything had to engage dirt, tractors. That's what I worked with. Any kind of piece of machinery, I worked on it. And that's just the way it was, because I always say we were even mechanics, because we were so poor we couldn't afford to have it fixed. If we didn't fix it ourselves, it didn't get fixed. So you kind of a jack of all trades if you work on a farm. And then once the bottom fell out of farming, I know it's a long way around to answer your question, but once the bottom fell out of farming, there was no jobs on the farm for me. I am literally the first male on my mother's side of the family to graduate high school, and I'm also the first male to go to college and get a degree. My mom was of all of her brothers and sisters, she's the only one that graduated high school that I remember. Maybe her sister did. I can't remember if her sister did. But back then, it wasn't like it. Most people would if you worked on a farm, you go to school to eighth grade and quit and go to work on the farm. So I realized, in my like sophomore, junior year, that there was going to be nowhere for me to go. And if I wanted to have some sort of career other than a life of crime, I needed to graduate. And then I went and got in the National Guard while I was actually in high school. So kind of a funny story. I went to basic training between my sophomore and junior year. get that sophomore and junior. And the reason being is when I started school, there was no, when I should have went to kindergarten, there was no kindergarten. Then they started kindergarten, and my mom had the choice of putting me in kindergarten or first grade because I should have been in first grade. Well, I was kind of right there in the middle of my birthday. So she went ahead and put me in kindergarten. And so I was always a year behind. So I turned 17 when I was a sophomore. And I told my mom I said, I'm going in the military. And she had to sign for me. I said, you can either sign for me now, or I'm going to do it next year anyway. So she went ahead and signed for me. Let me go to basic training. And I went to basic training when I was 17 years old. I was 2 months. I was 17, 2 months in when I went to basic training. So this big guy yelled at me on the bus, get off my bus, and beat your face.
What did your parents think when you told them you wanted to go into the military?
They were proud. I mean, it was, I think it would probably be a relief for them as a parent because, like I said, times were horrible. And going in the military was a very stable income and a place to get some education and some training. So I think my mom and dad were always proud of me going in the military. They never once, tried to talk me out of it. Well, I think that back. My mom didn't really want me to go between my sophomore and junior year. And I will say because I went so early, I was probably more easily molded than say, as a older you get, you're not as easily influenced. So when I first went in, I was, I bought it all in. I was, patriotism all the way. So that's how I got in the military.
I had another question, but I lost it.
Got to write them down.
What do you think so far? What do you think so far? How are you enjoying this, Tony?
I like it. I mean, who don't like to talk about themselves? I'm getting to tell the world
about myself.
Huh?
I hate talking about myself. Joe doesn't like talking about himself either.
Yeah, Joe.
I've gathered that.
Yeah, he don't. Well, I look back, we had our rough times. Like I said, we lost everything, dude. We went from being people living in a big brick house to, that people envied, to I lived in a trailer house with a hole in the floor. So, did that scar me in some way? Probably, but also in other ways, it made me tough because it made me see both sides of the fence. So I see some people now that are living in a hard time. I don't automatically judge them. We don't know. We don't know what happened to them. Because the bottom fell out of farming, or were my parents actually bad people? No, they weren't. They were still the same people. It's just circumstances beyond their control hit all at once. So, and they both, climbed back out of the hole and made great lives for themselves.
How do you think that experience really changed your life, and how did that mold you going from that upper middle class to living, like you said, in a trailer with a hole in the floor? I mean,
well, at that point in time, I was young and it was super embarrassing. And my parents divorced. So you got to understand too, at that point in time, people did not get divorced. It was very taboo. You did not, now it's more likely that kids' parents are divorced. But back then it was a very rare thing that parents would get divorced. It was almost considered like a failure of character. So that, having the fact that I went from being, fairly wealthy, I had 3-wheelers and toys and nice house, and Christmas was always cool, to, there's a couple of years in there before, my parents recovered, that it was pretty tight. And, the kids at school make fun of you. So yeah, it shapes you for sure. But I guess you could whine about it, or just, let it make you tough, and you realize also who really are, you realize who your real friends are too, because the real friends, they're there to wade through the muck with you. And the ones your good timing friends, they're only there when you provide something back for them.
Do you still have any friends back from those days when you were in grade school?
No, not really. No, I don't.
Just fell out of touch over the years.
Yeah, I mean, because not because of the people. I've got a friend, high school friend that I still think the world of. And if he called me tomorrow and said, "Hey man, I'm broke down on the side of the road," I go beat him. But we don't talk on a regular basis. But I don't think that was necessarily due to, anything either one of us done to each other. It's just the fact that my first duty station after high school, I went to Germany. So I lived in Germany
How
for
long?
for 4 years.
That was my question. How long were you in Germany?
Yeah, almost
Now,
4 years.
during that 4 years, is that when you met your wife? Because you
Yep,
said she's from
yep,
Germany.
yep. I met her 1991 ish.
Now,
Somewhere in there.
how did you meet her? Did she work on base, or how did that work?
No, no. Kind of the less detail of it is that we met through a friend. She worked. She was working at this little. They'd have these like festivals, and I went to a festival, and I remember her. I met her there the first time and kind of talked with her, and I remember her that she'd do the little thing where she would carry the beer around on the little tray.
A little platter.
Yeah, I remember that. That's a good. Honestly, part of that. A lot of that's just a blur now. That was so long ago. We've been married for over 33 years. But I remember going to like asking her on the date, and I got her number then, and I asked her out on a date, and she turned me down. Yeah, and she's like, "I can't do it."
So you write down, huh?
Yeah, she goes, "I can't do it." She goes, "I'm babysitting my sister's kids." I'm like, "God, that don't sound plausible." She just don't want to. She don't want to hurt my feelings. So I let it alone. And about 2 weeks later, I really liked her though. So I got the nerve to ask her again. I called her up and she answered. And, that's when you only had one phone in the house, and they would answer in German, and I would like, "Tanya, can I speak with Tanya?" And I try to speak it, ask it in German. And as a Southerner, I can't even speak good Southerner well. And then I'm trying to just mutilate the German language. I'm sure they were laughing on the other end. But anyway, so if she comes to the phone and I said, ask her out again, I was like, "Hey, can I get you to go out on a date with me?" She was like, "Can?" She goes, I'm watching my sister's kids." I was like, again, that is, this is the things that would go through your mind instantly. Like that's it. It's like, she's not digging me at all. So anyway, long story short, while all that went through my head instantly, she goes, I'm really watching my sister's kids. She goes, I like to go out with you. She goes, "Do you want to babysit with me?" So my first date was babysitting her sister's kids. I went to their house, and her niece and nephew mauled me for about 3 hours. I was like a climbing post, and they climbed all over me. And yeah.
So at the time, you didn't have kids because you're fresh out of high school.
Gosh, yeah. I think when I met Tanya, I was like 23. Yeah, I was 23.
So how did you like kids back then? Because I know that me personally,
I grew up.
my love for kids has developed as I've gotten older, as I've had my own kids. When I was a 22-year-old kid, because I was essentially a 22, you're still a kid.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You're in the military, you're doing adult things, but you're still a kid.
Yeah,
I was not a huge fan of other kids. Now, totally different story.
Right. I think I was different in the fact that I had 22 cousins of all ages. So I grew up with that, where I had cousins that were, I was 16, 17 years old, and I had cousins that were 5 and 6. And, they climbed all over me, and, it's just, we go have family reunion, cookout, whatever. I was kind of the big brother or the little brother, because I had cousins that were older than me. So, yeah, but
I was the youngest out of my cousins. You sound like you had a really big family, 22 cousins.
Yeah,
yes, that was typical in rural America back then with farming communities.
Yeah, you would have. It was more than just that. I mean, obviously, parents love their kids, but your kids were part of your labor force, your labor pool. Have a lot of kids, and and they helped run the farm. Some of them would move on to bigger things and different things, and some of them would stay and run the farm. But like I said, with me, the bottom fell out of farming. I'm pretty sure if the bottom had not fell out of farming and farming had stayed the way it was, that I probably would have went to 8th grade in school, got out and went to work on the farm. And that's probably where I'd still be right now.
Here's a question for you though.
All right.
Say Tony drops out at 8th grade, goes to the farm, Do you think that you ever make it back to YouTube? Do you think you ever start a farming YouTube channel?
Ah, that's so hypothetical, man. I couldn't even know how to answer that. I mean, the reality is, it's just the one guy that asked me to make the YouTube video. That was the catalyst. That was the thing that I would have never made a YouTube channel had that guy not asked me to make that video about how to set up the tiller. So he was the catalyst. He was the spark, without even knowing it. And then just by a twist of fate, I started making more videos, and people started watching them, and then you get, I'm competitive, man. So I want to make better and better videos, and I'll get more and more watches. And, each year we want to do a little bit better. We want to have a few more subscribers, and we want them to have, I remember the first month when we had like 10,000 people watch our videos over a 1 month period. I was like, that is so awesome. 10,000 people watched our channel. And now we do, between all of our platforms, we might do, 10, 12 million views in a month. And that, I couldn't have believed when I started this. If you told me, 10 or 12 million people are going to watch us on social media, I would have just told you crazy. There's no way that's going to happen.
It's crazy to think about even when it is happening, because I kind of sometimes am psyched out by that, because we'll put out some kind of content, or I'll be talking with you. I've done videos on your channel in the past, or other YouTube channels, and it's the amount of people that see it is just, it's crazy. And it's a humbling experience too.
It really is. And it's a responsibility. I get called out sometimes for being sponsored, but I take my being sponsored very seriously. Like, I don't take sponsorships from, I turn down so many more sponsorships than I take, because if a company's not willing to let me, if they say, well, we'll pay you this amount of money, and you show this product and you say these things, we'll pay you this much money. That ain't how it works. I'm not going to do it. If you want me to show you the product, that's fine. I'll show your product. If your product sucks, this is kind of my rule. If their product sucks, I will get back in touch with them. Hey, you want to correct this? Is there something, it's just, I get a bad one. If it just sucks, then I'll give them the option of like, hey, I'll just send me a return, and I'll send it back to you, because I'm not putting this video out. I don't just go bash companies. Like, some people will go out of their way to make a bad video. You don't see me bashing any companies. I've made a couple of like videos, and I don't think I bashed them, but like, I bought a new Ram truck, and I think 30,000 miles into it, the transmission fell out of it. And my buddy did the same thing. His transmission fell out of it. So we made a video just talking about that one issue. I'm not sponsored by them, but I didn't go out of my way to bash them, but we let everybody know that was a problem. So, but as far as any kind of sponsorships, no, I don't bash them. If they want, I even had some companies that it turned out like the product was really not good. It was not going to be a good review, and they still say, go ahead and show it. So I guess they feel like,
I wonder what would make a company do that.
Man, it still baffles me. Yeah.
I get bad exposure is still exposure.
I guess that's why, I always heard it in sales, any movement is better than no movement. So I guess so.
I get that, but I wouldn't want movement backwards.
Well, some people be like this. Well, that guy just didn't know what he was doing. I'm going to go buy it, prove him wrong. So, yeah,
I mean, you get that a lot.
Yeah, but again, all I'm saying though is my integrity is not for sale. Like I said, we primarily are, and this is the model that we're in now. We don't. They can't tell us what to say. If they want us to show something on the channel, you got to have enough faith in your product that you can just hand it to me, because I am the average user, and I'm going to do average user things. I'm going to use it improperly, probably half the time, and they have to understand when they make a product, that's probably what most people are going to do. I got a mulcher made by Bommalite. They just sent it to me, no questions asked, no instructions other than what, the instructions that came with it. Said rated at 6-inch in diameter tree. Well, the first thing Tony does is go back over an 8-inch tree, because that's exactly what every other man, and pretty much every other man out there that gets is going to do. Well, if it'll do 6 inches, it'll do 8. It's got to go slower.
It's got to go a little slower. I mean, there's got to be some kind of safety factor built into this thing.
And the reality is it's exactly the way they built it. That's the reason I'm a big fan of Bombalite. They are an awesome company, and they build lifetime stuff. And I've yet to tear that thing up. I may at some point have to replace that belt. There's a big Kevlar belt, but I keep it serviced and greased and the belt tight. But I've smoked that belt a couple of times. So
now, is your channel, is that really structured around the tractor work or the developing of the homestead?
So the homestead is the driving force. That's our goal. We want to do, but we also, I also look at ways like some company will go, hey, this new mulcher, we want you to try this new mulcher. And I really don't need another mulcher, but it makes good content. And, that's another form of income as well. We can get another implement, use it, and then sell it when we get through with it. If we want to, or we keep it. Like, I don't sell a lot. I think I've sold like 2 or 3 things that we've been sponsored with. Most of them now, I will only accept them if it's something I'm going to use. Like I'm not gonna take I don't know. Trying to think of an implement that I wouldn't take. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I want them all. Now, but I'm not going to take a chisel plow, right? We got a garden. I'm not going to take a chisel plow. It's just not, we don't need it, and so I don't take, it's got to be something we're going to use. If we're not going to use it, I'm not going to have it on the channel. So everything still stays within that goal of the homestead, building the cabin, moving over to the property. That's the long-term goal. But if something comes along the line, like implements like a mulcher or wood chipper or something like that we may already have covered, but they want us to show theirs. And if there's no conflict of sponsorship, then I would show it. And then, it's still interesting content. And I like to, if I show it and it works, that's all I do. I just show it. It works. I always make the joke. You can't fake a tractor plow in a field. And that's the same way you can't fake a tree being ground up by a wood chipper. So it helps people out there. And that's one thing that makes me feel good about when I show a piece of equipment. I'm trying to think about the people on the other end that are watching this. And I know that I influence people's purchasing decision. Now that doesn't alleviate their responsibility. They're still the purchaser. I have some people go buy something and something bad happens and they want to beat me up about it. I'm like, I didn't write the check, boss. You did. I just showed you what happened for me.
Sure.
But still, I'll try my best to only give honest reviews. I mean, I don't try. I do. Either it will work or it won't. If it won't work, you won't see it on our channel.
Now, with your channel, I've seen that you do a lot of tractor content and you structure it for first-time tractor owners. Has that been a popular thing that you get people that are looking to buy a tractor or
Sure.
maybe just bought a tractor and then coming to you to try to learn something?
That was originally the channel's goal, was to educate people. So 85% of tractor purchasers right now, I think the last number I heard was like 85% of tractor purchasers are first-time tractor purchasers. They've never owned a tractor. And out of that 85%, probably 70% of those have never even been on a tractor. So they have no idea. And it causes a lot of heartache too, because they'll go out and buy a tractor and feel like it's a piece of construction equipment, and it's not. It's a Swiss Army knife. You can do a lot of things with it, just a lot slower. I always say the tractors, they don't do anything great. They do a lot of things good, but they don't do anything great. There's no way a tractor is ever going to be as good at mowing as a zero turn. Just not going to happen. And there's never going to be a tractor that's as good, at being a forklift as a full-time as an actual true forklift. You can use it as forks. It can do a lot of things. And in some cases, it can do a better job. But reality is it's never going to be as good as a dedicated forklift. So
I've always said that equipment is most of the time purpose-built.
Sure,
it is very narrowly purpose-built. Your payloader is a very purpose-built machine. You have to have something specifically designed, for that machine in order to justify having it. Where a tractor is, like
just
kind of a multi-tool. Yep. It kind of does everything good enough for most people.
Right.
And I think that's why we're seeing a lot more people that own 2 acres, 3 acres, smaller plots of land that are trying to develop their own property or just trying to maintain their property, seeing them buying those compact tractors because they're just so versatile.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And the fact that so our channel started out that way was to, you know, enlighten people. Because I did grow up on tractors. I grew up on big tractors. And then as soon as I started doing the subcompact tractors and compact tractors, I realized that the same rules and physics don't apply.
Can you give me some examples there?
Well, just for example, like you do a back drag with your bucket on a T25. Well, the bucket surface area is 60 inches wide, and let's just say the surface area that you're dragging is basically 3 inches of the front of the bucket, just a cutter blade. And so you take how much that bucket weighs, it doesn't have enough weight to actually compress dirt or spread rocks very well. Whereas you take an empty 474 bucket, which is considerably heavier, it's 66 inches wide. It's only 6 inches more wider than the T25s, and you're still going to use about the same 3 inches of the front of the bucket, but that bucket is 200 something pounds, right? Well, then when you back drag with it, it does a better job of back dragging because there's more pounds per square inch on the dirt. Where the force or the T25, there's less pounds per square inch, and it's just there's a threshold. Once you cross enough pounds per square inch on that area, it's more effective. And it's little things like that, and there's multiple things in that cases of a subcompact. So I mean, I can't think on the top of my head, but it's little things where you would a big tractor would do it better than the small tractor. But then there's the cases where the small tractor can get in places the big tractor can't. But the whole point of it was there's little nuances that are different than. Let me turn my email off there. I think it just told me I had an interview with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
I think you're a little late to that.
Yeah, a little late to that one. But long story short is there's some nuances, differences between the subcompact. And just for example, like when you get into like those 70, 80, 100 horsepower tractors and above, like their axles are so overbuilt because those tractors are really industrial. Those are full-time farming tractors. Like you look at a front axle on say a 200 horsepower tractor versus say a 25 horsepower tractor. They're built dramatically heavier because they know that they are going to have the abuse of a full-time farm use, right? And they're going to be lifting, and every day of their life, they're going to be beat up. Where most of the subcompacts, especially subcompacts, they're mostly going to be used, 40, 50 hours a year. And so there's things you don't want to do with them. You don't want to overload their front axles in any brand. There's not TYM, not LS, not John Deere. The front axle is one of the most common things. I'd say the loader, bending a loader is number one, most common thing for first-time tractor purchasers. And the second thing is breaking their front axle because they don't put any ballast in the back. So as you pick up something in the front of your tractor, as you pick up and you don't have any ballast, you're moving your center of gravity further and further forward. So you end up having all of your weight pretty much on your front axle. And then you go bouncing across the yard in high range and you break your front axle. And there's things like that we talk about, whereas you got a big, giant 100 horsepower, bigger tractor, the front axle is so overbuilt, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it will wear out eventually, but.
So you've got experience with all different shapes and sizes of these smaller compact tractors, and you pretty much work with them. Let
me tell you how many I've had. Tell you the brands.
All right, let's do it.
A Yanmar 1500D, little Yanmar. All right. Great market tractor. I had a John Deere 1025R. Then I had two Kubotas. I had a 1800 Kubota. I think it was 1800, BX 1800 and a BX 2200. Those weren't new. I bought those used and they were broke and I fixed them and sold them. Bought a GC 1705 Massey Ferguson. That's the one we started a YouTube channel with. And then I decided I wanted a backhoe. And Massey Ferguson is the only one that I know that will not let you add a backhoe to the tractor. They won't sell you the kit to add a backhoe to the tractor afterwards. It has to be put on at the factory. And which it's good. But so I went to look for the backhoe, or trade in on one for the backhoe, and it was really expensive. And that's when LS first came out with the MT125, and I knew it. But this time I knew I was doing a YouTube channel, and I had at least the instinct to know that it's better to be the big fish in the small pond. And there was no other content creators on the MT125 except one other guy, and he hadn't put out. He wasn't like a everyday content creator. He would just put what I call a weekend warrior YouTuber, right? He was something that was interesting to him, he put on YouTube. He didn't put out a video all the time. So I took that opportunity to get in with LS Tractor. I told my wife, I said, I'm going to make enough videos, they're going to send me a hat. And she just laughed at me like, they're not going to send you no hat. Well, I kept making videos, and they said, I reached out to the company through social media and said, I want to send me a hat so I can show them one of my videos. They sent me a hat. And the next thing I said, I told her, I was like, I'm going to get them to sponsor the channel and give us a tractor. So she laughed at me again. It's like, that ain't going to ever happen. That's the last time she ever doubted me, though. Because about a year later, we signed a contract with LS Tractor, and they were our first sponsor.
So you did get LS to sponsor you?
Yeah. So we got LS.
How did that happen?
I reached out to him and said, hey, I want to, I think we can, that we can promote your tractor. And I had already had a bunch of comments where, hey, I bought this tractor because I watched your video. So I kept track of all of those comments, and I kept them in a little Word document, and I just sent them a whole list of every time I sold a tractor. So we signed a contract, and they send us it was a MT240E, because I already had the MT125. And so they sent me an MT240E, and we were in the contract. It was a 3-year contract, and we were about 2 years into the contract, and LS went through a really hard financial struggle during that time frame. A lot of people may not know this, but we almost lost LS as a brand in the United States during that time frame. And so the CEO of the company called me up one day and said, hey, I hate to tell you this, but we are going to have to cancel your contract. And the way it was is that we didn't get to keep the tractor unless we finished that 3-year contract. Well, we were 2 years into this contract by this time, and he canceled the contract and said, we got to get that tractor back. So we basically gave away 2 years of equity in that tractor. And probably I could have, done something legal if I wanted to, but it's like, you know what, this community's so small, you don't want to darken the waters, if you will,
Now, what would their reason be behind canceling the contract? Because they already don't need to pay you anything, right? Because they're not paying you on a monthly basis, are they?
Yes. Yeah.
So they are paying you on a monthly basis.
Yeah, we were getting paid
for the tractor.
We got the tractor as part of the deal. We got the tractor, and we would get paid so many cents per view. It was pennies per view. It wasn't like we were, we weren't rewriting our wealth calendar or anything like that. Still we were getting some monetary payment each month, and each month, based upon how many views we turn in, we did this video. This was an LS video. So that was, we didn't know at that time. We were brand new at this. As a matter of fact, we helped develop the contract. I was a contracting officer in the military, and so I had a basic understanding of contracts. So I helped draw up the contract, and kind of, like now I wouldn't even begin to sign the contract that I signed with them. But back then, it was all learning experience for sure. And then after LS, they pulled the tractors, and, obviously it brought some heartache with me because we'd done so well for them. And it was just a point. They literally couldn't afford it. The same guy that called me up and canceled my contract was no longer at the company three months later. CEO was gone 3 months later. That's how bad it was. So pretty much everybody, there's like nobody at LS Tractor there that was still there when I was there. As it's a totally different company. And did
you offer to keep making videos without a monthly payment on viewership, just so you didn't lose the tractor?
No, I didn't. It wasn't even an option. They did not offer any negotiations whatsoever. They were just done. So it was no doors were open. There was no negotiating, hey, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? It was just, we're done. So it really put a bad taste in my mouth for YouTube as well, because it really hurt my feelings, because we had sold a lot of tractors for LS, and I kind of take pride in that too, that we influence people, and again, I'm very conscious of how we influence. I still think to this day LS makes a fine tractor, and LS Korea is very financially stable, but at that time LS North America was not. So
what year was this?
Let's see, that was 2018.
So at that point, they were also making tractors for New Holland and Case.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything with TYM North America. I mean, or LS.
No, not TYM.
LS North America. Yeah, that doesn't have anything.
So that was LS
North
Korea.
America is a separate company completely, and New Holland's a separate company. So New Holland buys LS tractors from LS Korea, right? And in reality is LS North America buys tractors from LS Korea. So even though they're both LS, they're run, because of the laws, they have to be run separately. They have to have their own CEO, their own treasury officers, all that stuff. They got to have all of it, right? And they still, at the end of the day, LS Korea determines who the CEO of LS North America is, but it's just all these companies that do that run on the same structure. So even, LS, TYM, Coyote, any company that is here, that their product line is made somewhere else, but they're sold here, they're running on that kind of corporate structure. So LS North America made some big investments in some infrastructure, maybe a little bit ahead of time, and then had some kind of they put some marketing dollars probably where they shouldn't have put it, other than like the social media was where to put it. And they were kind of trying to still do newspapers and radio ads, and those days are gone for marketing. So anyway, long story short, they canceled our contract, closed all doors, and then again, like I said, pretty much every person that I knew at that time was let go, and the ranks of LS were just decimated. There were just hardly anybody left there. I think there's like 2 or 3 people that are still there, and I didn't know them, but there's 2 or 3 people that are still there that were there back in 2018. And
so once LS pulled out, you're obviously like looking for another tractor sponsor, I would imagine.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I literally almost quit YouTube. It really broke my heart, because we were all in. We built our channel around LS, and it just really it broke my heart, because we put our heart and soul into building our channel and building it around LS and being brand ambassadors. We went to the shows. They'd bring us to the shows, and we would shake hands. It was pretty awesome, especially back then, because it was all so new. It was I think when I went to LS, or when we left LS, we had 5,000 subscribers, and we were doing maybe, I don't know, 150,000 views a month. So that was kind of, but that was big. If you look at it from where we came from, where I was excited for our 10,000 view month just a few years earlier. But so I almost quit, and then there's a dealer, I won't call his name out, but there was a dealer that sold both LS and TYM. Well, he calls me up, and we were friends, and he calls me up and goes, "Hey, Tony," he says, "what do you think about, getting sponsored by TYM?" He says, "I sell TYMs too." And he said, that all the dealers know that we, by showing the tractors work, that it sells the tractors. It's an honest way of marketing, because like I said, either the tractor will pull the plow or it won't pull the plow. Either it'll mow or it won't mow. So it's a really honest way to market, and it gives you great third party views. Well, long story short, he puts me in contact with a guy from TYM, and this guy watched some of our channel, and he's like, "Yeah, I want you to meet the one of the big dogs with TYM." So I went to the National Farm Machinery Show. I guess this was 2019 in February, and met with him. Dave Alton was his name. He was the national sales manager for TYM for like forever. And anyway, he sat down with me and talked, and like what I said, if you'll put a TYM tractor on our channel for 6 months as a loaner. I said, you'll never not have a channel or tractor on a channel. You know what I'm saying? You'll always have a TYM tractor. So we went 6 months, and I liked the TYM so much. My feelings were hurt so bad with the LS that I sold the MT125. There was no way I was going to show that tractor on any of my videos ever again. And
yeah, that makes sense.
it's like anyway. So I sold that MT125. So I didn't have a tractor. So TYM offered me a really great deal on the little 264, in the T264.
Yep.
An exceptionally great deal. But I still had to, I had to put money in on it, and that was the starting point. And then after that, at one point we had 9 tractors at our farm where we were doing videos and commercials and things for TYM. So it's we're part of the TYM culture now and part of the marketing. We help market. We're not only do we do social media, but we also do marketing for TYM. So we've made commercials. We've made, like print ads, if you will, stuff that can be shown. But yeah, we got,
so did you always
found a bunch of rabbit holes.
No, that's good. That's what we're here for. Now, as far as the tractors go, I mean, you've always had an interest in tractors because you grew up on the kind of the family pig farm. Did you always have an interest in like that homesteading and like self-sustaining way of life?
I think I would have. Yeah, like I said, if farming had stayed solvent, I would have probably went to the 8th grade and got out and went to work on a farm, and probably would have never. Yeah, it met my emotional needs for sure. It's a good, honest job. It's a good, honest work. And when as a kid, I couldn't wait to get off the farm, to be honest with you, because I knew there was no future in it for me. So all I could do was like clean pig pens and stuff like that, but there was no future for me in farming. There was no money there. Like it got to the point where there was, my uncles were struggling to pay my cousins that were already working the farm. There was that cousins had to go look for other jobs so there's no way they could afford me. So, I couldn't wait to get away from the farm. There again, there's probably some bad feelings there for the way things happen. But, and then after I left, and I couldn't wait to go back to the farm. So I spent the next 30 years in the Army. Couldn't wait to go back to the Army or go back to the farm. And, so yeah, I guess I've always wanted to be in the farming side. Sawmills have always fascinated with me. I cut timber I was with my uncle one summer and cut timber with him a few times. And he carried me to a sawmill. That's the first time I ever seen a sawmill in action. And I was hooked on that. And then I started seeing those band sawmills. And I always wanted one. That's how I ended up with a sawmill.
Do you think the sawmill has played a vital role in you and developing your homestead?
Yeah, it's so satisfying. I mean, I think it's just, as far as me, well, here's the truth, man. If you were a very motivated person, physically fit, without any extreme disabilities, you can make a really good living with a portable sawmill. And then especially the one I got now where it has hydraulics, you can load this dude up on a trailer, have trailer kits you put on it. You bring it, pull it into a site, pull your tractor into a site, and you could do small acreage, harvesting the trees. We're like a big company that's, got big skidders and stuff. They're not gonna come in for, 2 acres of southern yellow pine.
Sure.
It's not worth it for them. But I could pull in a small, my sawmill and the tractor, go in there and cut everything up, and then just leave a small burn pile to burn, and you could definitely make money off of it. So if the YouTube thing ever fails, I'm gonna be cutting timber.
You'll be sawmilling.
We sawmilling.
So you've got experience with numerous different tractors, as we talked about, and different sizes among that, and all the way back to the big agricultural farm tractors.
Of that
time. You talk with a lot of that time, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily new modern agricultural farm tractors.
Yeah, well, you gotta look at back then. 160 horsepower tractor was a massive tractor. And so now you got tractors with 500 horsepower.
True. I guess where I was going to that, you're now sponsored by TYM. You were sponsored by LS. You talk your audience, a lot of your audience is first-time tractor buyers, or at least some of them, and you talk to first-time tractor buyers a lot. What would you say are like the 5 biggest things that someone should look for when it comes to buying their first tractor?
Well, they really need to think about what they're going to do. So I had a guy ask me the other day, it's a good example. He said, he made a post and he said, well, this tractor, we was looking at a 264. He said, well, this tractor, or T25. And he said, well, this tractor lift a tote of firewood. And I posted back to him and said, man, you're asking the wrong question. How much does the tote of firewood weigh? And then buy the tractor accordingly. Because, if the tractor can only lift 1,300 pounds and your tote weighs or your tote weighs 1,200 pounds, well, you're at like 90% capacity of that tractor. You don't want that tractor. You want some margin, like 75% margin, or 25% safety margin. So, I would say buy a tractor that if you need to lift 2,000 pounds, well, you want to buy a tractor that can lift 2,500 pounds. So you got a pretty good margin there. And that's the best I can do on the fly with math. So y'all just bear with me on that.
That's all right.
Don't hold it against me. Never do math on a live video. I'm just saying it's bad. Always turns out bad. So that would be one is like that. It's just, understanding what you're going to do with it. And then don't limit yourself. What are you going to do with it 5 years from now? Because a tractor is you generally, you don't like, it's not like cars where you buy them and go trade them in. I get that a lot too, where people will go, they'll worry about trade-in value. You don't worry about trade-in value. We're about buying the right tractor for you the first time. Because, TYM is a value leader tractor. They cost less up front. Well, guess what? When you trade them in, you're going to get less money from them on the back side because you paid for less money on the front side. And, is it still a quality tractor? Absolutely. I mean, I've got 500 hours on my big tractor. And matter of fact, I was out there greasing it today. Got it up on the trailer, was greasing it, and had no failures on it other than what I'm broken. So I think the biggest question is to know how much. What are you planning on doing with it? That's the biggest thing. Is what are you planning on doing with it? And then when you figure that out, then you got to figure out, what am I going to be lifting? What am I going to be mowing? How long do I want to spend these times? So if you've got a 1 acre field you're going to mow, then it's probably going to be okay to mow it with a 25 horsepower tractor because it's only 1 acre. But if you've got 15 acres to mow, you can mow it absolutely with a T25, with a 25 horsepower tractor. You're doing it 5 foot at a time. You can do it, no doubt. But it's going to wear your equipment out really fast, and it's going to wear you out really fast because I'll tell you what, it's out there, it's 100 degrees outside and the heat boiling up off the tractor. If you don't have a cab, air conditioner, that's something to think about. So if I'm going to mow 15 or 20 acres of ground, well, first off, I want a cab tractor with air conditioning and something that's going to pull like a 10-foot batwing or a 12-foot batwing, if you're going to mow it, pretty often. So that's things to think about. It's like the size of the tractor, what its capabilities are, and not, probably the first-time tractor purchasers need to understand that these tractors are not dozers. One of the things that bothers me so bad is to see a thumb on a backhoe, on a subcompact tractor, and then see one of those piranha bars on the front loader of a tractor. It tells me they're trying to cut dirt. The loaders are not meant to cut dirt. You can, once you're a really established operator, you can learn to shave with a front bucket and not damage it. But there's a lot of finesse to it. And most times, first time tractor purchasers are not like that. They think they own a dozer, and when they're pushing the dirt and it doesn't happen, their instinct is to throttle down and just drop the hammer on it. Go hammer into it. And then they fold their loader up onto their tractor, and then they're mad at the tractor when reality is they didn't buy the right piece of equipment. So first-time tractor purchasers need to understand that tractors are not, they're called loaders for a reason. And the reason I don't like the thumbs on the small tractors is because, again, most people that are buying these small tractors the first time, they'll take the thumb and they'll reach down and pick a log up, fold the backhoe up, and then drive across the field with it, bounce along, and all that weight's bouncing back there. And kinetic energy, it's not just the 1,000-pound log you have out there, but it's a 1,000-pound log and the momentum of that 1,000-pound log bouncing. And then they rip out the top bearings of their, the top bushings out of the top of their backhoe at the pivot point. And they're like, this thing's a piece of crap. Like, no, you just, you ran across the yard with a 1,000-pound log on the back of your backhoe. It's to dig. It's not to take that big a shock. And it was such a problem that from the 264, which the TYM 264 to the T25, that they changed the backhoe, and they basically put instead of trying to train the operators to use the tractor for what it was meant for, they put a pivot point on the backhoe that was like 3 times the size of the original one. And that was just because
they just beefed it up so they didn't have any issues with it.
Right. But it's still not a great idea to, pick a 1,000-pound log up and go bouncing across the yard with it high range. That's other things I see, like first time tractor guys make the mistake of is lift a heavy load with their loader and then go real fast. When you're, because you say you got 600 pounds of gravel in your bucket and you hit a bump. Well, that gravel, 600 pounds is going down, but not only is it 600 pounds, but it's all that kinetic energy going down too. And then that hits your axles. And that's why people's front axles fail, because they're going fast. So when I pick up a heavy load of gravel, I'm barely moving. I mean, I'm doing 1-2 miles an hour because that's the weak point.
You're a lot nicer on tractors than I am.
At all seriousness though, again, other than what I personally have broken, my tractors don't fail.
Yeah.
So
I've been really lucky. I've got a 75 horsepower New Holland.
Is that a LS or is that a New Holland?
So I believe that's a New Holland. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe it's a New Holland. It's a 2007. So
yeah, that probably is. That probably is. If you look at the data plate and it says Mitron on it, then it would be an LS. But if it doesn't say Mitron, then it won't be. Because LS Mitron.
We've been really lucky with that tractor. It's got close to 6,000 hours.
Yeah, but you're in that other type of tractor, what I was talking about earlier. You're starting to cross into that more farm. People are expecting that tractor to be worked hard every day. And they know that the farmers are going to go over every limit that was ever printed on a piece of paper for that tractor. They're going to go over it. So that's why they build it the way they build it. And when you get into the subcompact and smaller compact tractors, they can't build them that way just for the cost, because they couldn't afford, nobody could afford one.
I could see that.
Yeah, no. So, well, you also got to think about weight too. There's a lot when you start getting into subcompacts, and compacts, especially subcompacts, you don't want the weight. Those tractors are set up to mow, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's a magic number on pounds per square inch of the tire on grass. You don't want your mower to ever go over, whatever you're mowing with, you don't want it to ever go over this many pounds per square inch of weight. And the reason being is it starts causing hard pan, and then the grass will grow down to a certain depth, and that's where it stops. And once you have drought, it kills all your grass because the roots can't go down any further. So there's a magic number, like the Kubota BX series. It's not really, it's a mower. It's a mower that has tractor features, but its pounds per square inch come in under the weight limit of what a mower has to be. Same with a TYM 224. It's a mower with tractor features, but it's built. I mean, you're wrong. It's cast iron rear end. It's probably pushing the limits. But
yeah, I mean they're built as tractors, both that you had mentioned. It's not like some of the older literal garden tractors that are
they were
lawnmowers that
they were Hosses.
Just and they had maybe a small 3-point hitch, a Cat 0 3-point hitch, and
what was it when I grew up? You had the old Cub Cadet and the John Deere like 110 series, 115. Then you got all the way up to like the 455 with a diesel Yanmar in it. I mean, but you notice on those tractors though, like on the 455, I think it's 455, maybe it's a 445. Anyway, whatever whatever one it is, if you notice on those tractors, as they got bigger and bigger, the tires got wider and wider on the front and the rear. And the reason being is they were keeping that tractor. Its still primary job was to mow, and they had to keep the weight down to that limit per pounds per square inch so that it didn't pack the soil.
Yeah, it comes back to compaction.
Right.
And modern agriculture, reducing compaction is a major thing that farmers are trying to do. Just for, like you said, the root depth of your plants and
right,
the overall health of your soil. And with that compaction, you've got all those little voids in your material, in the soil. And then with that compaction, you get rid of all the voids, you get rid of all the oxygen. And then you have the microbial life that's in the soil survive because it becomes what they call anaerobic. So you've got aerobic and anaerobic. And when your soil becomes anaerobic, you get rid of all that oxygen, and then a lot of your life dies. And you may still have good nitrogen and...
Right. In addition to that, though, the stuff that's in your soil, like particles of plant stuff, it can't decay because if it doesn't have oxygen, it can't decay.
Mm-hmm.
So, it keeps you from even amending your soil. But that's the reason farmers, even to this day, they run big tractors with multiple, like you'll see 3 duals in the rear, or three tires in the rear, not even duals. You have triples on, and you'll have duals on the front now. Even on tractors that the front axles it's not articulating. It's just a front steer tractor, and you'll still see duals on those. They still need the weight of the tractor to pull the big old implements, but they're still having to try to keep the pounds per square inch down. But that's also why even so that when you have no-till farming, about every 6 years or so, you're going to come in with a chisel plow and drop that dude 3 foot in the ground, 4 foot in the ground, and just rip the soil completely to pieces.
So that's changing. That's changing with cover crops and the things that they're doing now in modern regenerative ag.
But it also depends on where you're at, too.
Deep plowing isn't required in every area, depending on how things are grown.
So we have a really high clay content here. That's the reason you see them still chisel here.
Yeah, there's some areas that regenerative no-till system just doesn't work because the ground isn't any good for it. Whether it's too dry or too wet or whatever.
Right. They still no-till here, but just like I said, about every 5th or 6th year, they'll come in and put the rippers in the ground, and it's still better for the environment because you're not, if you're no-tilling 5 years out of 5, or let's say out of 10 years you're no-tilling 8 of those. Well, that's 8 years you didn't have as much erosion out of the 10. So it gives your soil a chance to build up and recover. Whereas we lost a lot of topsoil in the 70s and 80s by just wide open tilling, the soil and planting the same way we did since Granddaddy did it way back in the day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's many studies around here where we lost like 7 or 8 inches of topsoil during that time frame.
I believe that, and I think that I remember some kind of study that was done out west, and it was like if things didn't change and farming practices didn't change and everything continued on the path that it was on, it was some crazy number. Like we were going to be out of actual topsoil in like 2050. Like it just wasn't.
I remember that. That was
because it was going to just wash away essentially because you've got all that loose material on the top of the ground. You've got all that rainwater, and that's got to go somewhere, and it carries a lot of that stuff.
I can see it in my garden. I have to be really careful with how where I place my garden, and I'll till the garden, but I have to till a certain way in a certain direction, and then have like drainage ditches to keep the water from going across the garden. Or if you misread it and you get water coming across it, it'll cut the garden, and you'll see all your topsoil going down the hill. And you don't think about it that much at that time, but you imagine that over 10 years, well, you lost a lot of topsoil. And I don't have much topsoil to begin with.
What I think people don't always think about is topsoil is essentially the soil that you have underneath that's been amended over thousands or hundreds of thousands of years with organic matter to turn into a more nutrient-rich and better growing environment. And that material, 9 times out of 10, is lighter than the rest of the material around it. So when you do have that rain, it's going to carry away the stuff that you want to keep and leave behind the stuff that you don't want.
Right. Well, we got down that rabbit hole too, didn't we?
Yeah, well, that happens. So
Yeah,
composting and soil and kind of, that's a subject I'm relatively familiar with. So when we had a horse farm
sawdust.
growing up, what's that?
We use sawdust now.
You sawdust?
Yep, I put sawdust in the garden. Only like hardwoods, like oak.
Why?
It gives you organic matter.
Well, it does, but it's also going to pull a substantial amount of nitrogen from your
Right.
soil.
Yeah, for the first, while you're amending it, it will. But over the long haul, it definitely will. Over the long haul, it will definitely. Did I lose you?
Yes. Tony did in fact lose me. The camera that we're recording this on did in fact die. So it was plugged into the laptop the entire time because it's being used as essentially a virtual webcam and not a camera itself. But the cord that was transferring that data apparently was not transferring enough power to keep the battery charged in the camera. So that's something we're going to have to get figured out. We obviously don't want this to happen in the future. Unfortunately, it did, and we did decide to go ahead and call it for the day and cut the episode short. I don't know how much further we would have went in our conversation. There were some things that I wanted to talk to Tony about, and I really just didn't get the opportunity to. So we're going to have to get him back on because I do want to get into a couple things that I think you're going to want to hear as well. But I'd love to hear your comments about how you think it went, and I'd also love to hear who you want us to try to get on next. So I appreciate you spending this time with us and watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks. We'll see you later.